Welcome everyone to the next episode in our Night Springs series. If you are new, I recommend pausing and watching both the introduction and overlap videos which break down the nature of the TV show before proceeding further. With that out of the way, grab some popcorn and let's check out today's episode of Night Springs. When producing a television show, a lot of the ideas get lost in the writing room. Others get scripted and never filmed. Even some that are filmed are never aired. Night Springs is a property that likely inspired a lot of writers to try their hand at this reality-bending genre. How many of them were never aired, never seen? Probably hundreds. But even if they were never seen, that doesn't mean they were not relevant. One of these episodes was written by our own Alan Wake. We have no confirmation if this episode was ever seen by anyone. However, it showed up in the investigation sector of the oldest house. The reason for this was never explained. Today's episode of Night Springs is entitled Over a Threshold Darkly. Since we happen to have the full transcript, we might as well read it. It is only human nature to wish to control the forces around us, and even more so, to possess them. But what happens when those forces are not ours to claim, or even of this world? What if they are things you can discover in Night Springs? We are in a secret lab. The large sign on the wall reads, The Federal Bureau of Night Springs. I told you before, Director, it isn't ready. It's ready when I say it's ready, Doctor. But the being behind the portal, we have no control over it. The robust director shoves the nerd-like scientist aside and heads for the portal control panel. He slams the on button with a determined fist. All the more reason. The entire screen is filled with dangerous red. Then it fades away and we see that the two men are in another dimension. The air ripples around them as if they were a 1983 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am sitting in the Texas sun after a 5-day road trip. What have you done? You've doomed us! Control yourself, Doctor. Where's this beast of yours? Right there, sir. A horrible, shapeless, shifting entity fills the horizon. It can't be described, that's how horrible it is. What a thing of beauty you've been keeping from me. The director steps closer to the horrible entity. He reaches out with a steady hand. You are mine now, creature. I will return you to my facility and control your power. Sir, we don't know... The entity instead rushes forward and engulfs the director. He screams in pain as the scientist looks on and does nothing, like the coward he is.
I am not one being examined. I am not one locked inside a prison.
Gradually, the director emerges from the entity. His once sparkling eyes are now empty and dull. The scientist rushes to him. Sir, we have to escape. We cannot. They are in control now. I got what I wanted. The scientist turns from what used to be his director, now transformed into a stranger, an alien that only resembles the director in form. He drops his all-important clipboard as he stumbles towards the closing portal, but the horrible entity is already rushing through in it in a flow of insanity and chaos. The scientist becomes caught in it, and the entity devours him, screaming as it enters our world. The director lifts his pistol to his head. His hand is steady, sure in its finality. Or so I thought. Camera fades to black, a gunshot is heard. And so, our hunger for control, our obsession for domination and power, the hubris at play in this children's puppet show we're starring in, can only lead to our fall from control, to submit to those who really hold the strings and control us. In Night Springs. It is apparent that many of the rough details line up with the events in Slidescape 36. The secret lab is the FBC. The director is Trench. The scientist is Darling. The dangerous red light is the Hiss. The entity is also the Hiss, or could be interpreted as Hedron. The director is engulfed like Trench was infected by the Hiss. The scientist was caught in the thing, which roughly lines up with Darling exposing himself to the Hedron residence. At the end, a gunshot is heard, targeting both the director and his real-life counterpart. Even comparing the hubris to a children's puppet show echoes to the Threshold kids. For the longest time after the screenplay was uncovered, it was believed that Alan writing this caused the events to happen, that he wrote Control. This is believed despite the developers confirming this is not true. However, now that we have context from Alan Wake 2, we have further proof as to why this is false. Alan received dreams during his childhood of things that had not yet occurred. One of these dreams likely involved the FBC going into Slidescape 36 and the events surrounding the Hiss and Hedron. As a result, Alan adapted his dream into this. Another clue to support that the work of fiction did not cause the events in reality comes down to the episode's title, Over a Threshold Darkly. This is taken from a story written by Philip K. Dick called A Scanner Darkly. While the events of the book itself are not relevant, the history around it is. It is described as being a semi-autobiographical story. I say semi because it is a work of fiction centered around experiences that the author really had. It is described as a fictionalized account of real events. In the 1970s, Dick got involved in the local drug culture. He states that everything in A Scanner Darkly I actually saw. While he experienced it, they were not strictly speaking real. The book is based upon this experience. This is a great way to look at Night Springs, specifically in this episode. Over a Threshold Darkly is a fictionalized account of the real-world events surrounding the FBC using the slide projector, about the Hiss invasion and the Hedron entity. Don't let the timeline of events get in the way. Whenever an adaptation is made, there are slight variations between the original events and the fictionalized account. Upon waking up from a dream, you try to remember the details. As each minute goes by, those details are lost piece by piece. With all that said, I wonder what would have happened if this episode was aired. How would the FBC react to seeing their own history expressed on television? Have you ever seen that disclaimer used at the start of some films or games? All characters appearing in this work are fictitious. Any resemblance to real persons living or dead is purely coincidental. That disclaimer is the moral of the story when we study too deep down the rabbit hole of Night Springs. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe to receive updates on future uploads. If you would like to help support the channel, a Patreon has been set up and the link is in the description below. Have a great day and peace be with you all. Versions of this sound.